Welcome. Hi, I'm Sarah D. And this is
Dr. D. I remembered my name this time.
It's a learning. There's a curve.
It's curved. Yes,
It's curved.
It is curved.
Just like that. What? Demand and supply and demand. Isn't that curved too?
It can be curved. Yes.
Okay. We're not going to talk about that right now. So this is number 105. Conversation with number 105 with Dr. D. And I'm asking him questions. And we talked about last week gas prices with regard to the effect COVID has had on the gas prices from, say, last year until now.
Uh-huh.
May I encapsulate that, and then you make sure that I...
Please, teach back. It's a great pedagogical tool.
In the right capsule. So essentially, the reason gas prices are higher now is because... well, they were lower before.
I like that. That's a great reason. They are higher now because they were lower before. Yes.
And the reason thank you. This is the foundation. This is the foundation, not the curve. So the reason they were lower then is because we were not driving as much. And before COVID hit, actually 2 years before, right? Because this is 2022. It was in 20 that we really stopped too, like in March.
Yeah.
Anyway, but last year for the full year.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, there were mandates that made it so that we couldn't go out as much, and people were working from home and not driving as much, and so there wasn't as much demand. And so with littler demand, there was less gas being purchased, and they needed the gas to be purchased because it would rot.
Well, it could rot.
It can kind of rot.
It can go bad,
You did talk to me about that off camera. And so they made the prices lower to try to make it so that we would go out and just take joy rides.
Yeah. They weren't worried about it rotting. They just didn't want to pay for storing it.
Okay.
That's also a problem, right? It may rot, but there's more you have to pay to store it.
that
Warehouses
makes
are
sense.
expensive, even if they're big round tanks.
Yeah, that makes sense. So anyway, it's higher now because their demand is higher now, and the people at the oil company, hi, they couldn't accommodate for the expectation of what was going to happen, or just that there wasn't enough gas that they could make. Is that it?
They can accommodate for it, and they do accommodate for it. But as we want more of it, they have to make more. In order to make more, you have to hire more workers and you have to pump more oil. All of those things have to be done, and you have to convince all of those people to do more.
So I think I didn't encapsulate it very well, but I tried.
Yes.
But we're going to move on anyway, okay? So I got a C on that test, okay? That's okay. I'm not an economist.
C's average. It's good.
I'll be happy with a C. But there is something else about gas prices.
I like it. Yes.
Let's stay on that same topic,
Yes.
because I hear people, and I used to be confused about it, and I remember learning from you the reason, and I've tried to explain it to people before, and I do it at a C level, so they're going, huh?
Then we just have to be at the coast.
Pardon me?
Because then we're at sea level.
Yes! Well, there we go. Let's go to the beach. Oh man. Ugh. Okay, so we have... every year, the price, like in the spring, the price of gas starts to ramp up.
Late May.
Okay.
So
it's kind of like the Groundhog Day thing. It happens at the same time all the time. Spring happens at the same time all the time. The gas prices basically ramp up at the same time. But it's interesting because consumers have a short memory and they think, oh no, why is that happening now? Well, it happened last year. Why did the sun rise today? Well, it rose yesterday. Is that kind of a thing? Is it not?
It is that kind of a thing. Yes, there is a cycle in gas prices.
So can you explain that gas cycle so that people don't feel so upset about it? Because when we feel upset, our cortisol rises. And when our cortisol rises, number one, you actually store more calories. And number two, you're not in your prefrontal cortex. You're just all in your amygdala, and you just go, ah, like that, and you just don't get much done. I mean, not anything really effective. If you want to be effective, you want to understand this. So here you go.
Well, you have to understand that this happens not at the gas station. This happens before the gas station.
So this isn't the pressure.
So it is pressure, but it's a different pressure, and The pressure is caused by several things. So the first thing is that we have to pull back and we have to think about the production of
gas, oil.
well, not just gas, hydrocarbons that we use. Okay, so the hydrocarbons that we use are gasoline, diesel, and home heating oil.
Is home heating oil diesel?
It's essentially diesel without all of the additives in it.
Essentially, okay.
Yeah, right. Okay, so
that's why some people will go to the diesel pump and put it in their heating oil?
you could do that, or you could buy kerosene, which is very similar also, right? Okay. But they're similar. They're similar.
I
yes.
digress.
But not terribly meaningfully.
Okay.
Right. So let's think of it as two types of hydrocarbons that we produce. We produce the gasoline type, and we produce the diesel type.
Okay.
Okay. So most of us think of diesel as just being in our big pickups or in semi-trucks.
That's like do good.
Right. We think that's what they're in. But it's also in...
Diesel, gasoline, do good.
Yeah, do good. I got it now.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure you got it.
I do now.
That was pretty good.
But this diesel type stuff, this other hydrocarbon, is also used a lot in the Northeast for heating in the wintertime. So we used to have, we're in New York, we used to have diesel fueled heat. We now have natural gas fueled heat, but we used to have diesel fueled heat. And so the thing is that when a production facility is making gasoline, it's making gasoline but not diesel. And when a production facility is making diesel, it's making diesel but not gasoline. And the production facility...
And the reason it's not is because they can't have a factory for one or the other. Because there's not enough space, and also because...
So technically we could have a factory for each. Right, so technically we could have a factory for each and we could flow it through each one. But it turns out that when we're processing chemicals, sometimes doing it at a large scale makes it much less expensive to do.
Okay.
So I need a big factory and I need to throughput a lot of it. And it makes it cheaper to make. It's called scale.
I understand that, but I guess I missed something. What it makes what? Whatever.
Okay, so we can make smaller factories. A smaller factory that makes diesel and a smaller factory that makes gasoline.
Oh, you're saying sharing the facility is better.
So it has a scale, what's called an economy of scale aspect to it. That is that when I'm processing on large scale, the fixed costs of setting up the production facility are amortized across a lot more gallons through.
Okay.
So essentially what I'm saying is it's on average, it's cheaper to make it if I make a lot of it at a time.
But you're not making both of them at the same time.
But I can't make both at the same time in the same process.
So you try to store enough for the whole year? Is that the deal?
So here's what they do. Here's what they do. Right. So part of the year they make gasoline, and part of the year they make diesel.
And the part of the year that they make gasoline, they store that gasoline because it won't go rotten in a year?
Right, so they store it up. They store up the excess gasoline that's produced. So if we think about this, what's going on is that sometime near the end of the summer, gasoline production gets shut off at the oil refinery. That's the place that takes raw oil and breaks it down into the hydrocarbons that we use, gasoline or diesel. We'll just say that there are only two of them. There aren't really only two, but let's just say there are only two. So they're producing gasoline through the summer because we're using a lot of it in the summer. We all want to go on vacation. We want to visit grandma. We want to do all of these fun things. So they're storing that. So they're producing that in the summer, and they're making extra beyond what we're going to use, and they start storing it up.
The gasoline.
Gasoline, and then sometime near the end of the summer, they shut off the gasoline production. And they turn over to producing diesel or heating oil because the winter is going to come and the Northeast is going, well, the Northeast and the northern Midwest, Minnesota wants to stay warm too, and there's not enough trees to burn, and we get pissy when we burn trees, so we burn home heating oil. And if we're not burning home heating oil in our house, we're burning it at the electric factory. Right? It's using it to make electricity. So it's using diesel to heat water to make electricity, or it's using natural gas to heat water to make electricity, or it's using coal to heat water to make electricity, or it's using right home heating oil type stuff, diesel, or it's using nuclear fission to create heat, to boil water to make heat, right.
So there's the little sun.
Yeah, fusion would be the little sun. They're not there yet. So they're doing all these things to heat water and make electricity. So it doesn't matter whether we all have diesel burning heaters in our house.
It's happening.
It's happening even if you've got an electric heater.
But it's not happening if you have gas.
Natural gas is different. It's a different source, and it doesn't go through the same thing.
People don't like that either. But we're not talking about that.
We're not talking about it. So I've got this factory. It's making gasoline. It shuts off, cleans up, and it starts making diesel type fuels or home heating oil type fuels, and it starts producing those.
And so when it does that, the gas prices don't go up then.
No, the gas prices don't go up then because they've stored a bunch of gasoline away. They've been very good ants.
Yes.
They've been very good ants. Right? They've been very good ants. They've been storing food away. They've been storing gasoline away. So we can still drive in the wintertime.
So somebody does a prediction. Mm-hmm. Or people in the different companies do a prediction.
Yeah. So these are the guys that you said were setting the price, and really what they're doing is they're trying to understand the predictions of the weather, and they're trying to understand how much gasoline and stuff they need to produce for. Yes.
How many cool vacations or how many.
That's exactly right. They're more trying to predict flows. And prices determine flow, so they're trying to predict what the price might be.
They need the crystal ball with
smoke. They need a crystal ball with smoke. A lot of it. It's hard work, right? And a lot of math and science.
A lot of math and science.
So they've produced their gasoline. They put some of it in storage. Some of it we spent in the winter, and we're driving down the storage. So they're not producing in the wintertime. They're not producing much gas.
Right.
And gas stores are slowly being run down, and diesel is being used to heat.
So maybe some years they're able to gauge it relatively accurately, and maybe on those years the prices in the springtime don't go up
exactly.
So much. And maybe that's why some years it's not as good and people are shocked.
So what happens if
not okay?
What happens if we happen to have a reasonably warm winter in the Northeast and the Midwest?
We don't use a lot of oil.
We don't use a lot of oil. So what do they get to stop producing?
Earlier.
Yeah, they can stop producing oil earlier, and what do they start producing? Gasoline again, because they know the summer's coming and we're all going to go visit grandma.
Okay.
Right? And so what's happening is that at the end of the home heating season, at the end of the home heating season, there's a transition where I shut down my plant, clean it out, and start making gasoline again. If the winter was cold, or if the winter goes a little bit long, we're going to run down our stores of gasoline before we can switch over. And the price of gasoline is going to rise to reflect that scarcity. That scarcity will go away reasonably quickly, because eventually they're going to be able to transition over. But the last thing you want to do is, I got it, it's really inconvenient that you have to pay a little bit of extra for gasoline at the end of the year or at the beginning of the summer because you want to go see grandma. But it would be really sad if you ran out of diesel fuel to heat grandma's house and she was dead when you got there.
Where you're going. Okay,
right.
fine.
So there's a balance there that's being struck.
Yes. Okay. So it doesn't always happen at the same time in the spring, and it doesn't even always happen that much in the spring. It depends on the weather, and it depends on how the crystal ball is working.
Oh yeah, all of those kinds of things. But that's completely on the supply side.
It's not the nefarious thing that people automatically go to.
No, it's not nefarious. The oil companies aren't just screwing with you, because I guarantee you
they want your business.
Absolutely. If I'm Shell Oil, and I know that everybody else is screwed up, and the price is going to go up, I want to have a lot of it to sell. But if I have a lot of it to sell, and Exxon has a lot of it to sell, and Standard Oil has a lot of it to sell, and all of the places have a lot of it to sell, then I don't get the chance to get that exaggerated price. So all of them are competing against one another, And yes, they would love the others to guess wrong.
And the pressure of the flow has its play as well.
And the pressure of the flow, that is how scarce it gets, generates that pressure of flow that pushes the price.
Okay.
Right. It's just that change over time.
All right, so that makes sense. And when I listen to this a few times, I'll get it down better. I thought I had it down pretty good.
That's not the only thing, though.
Well, and that's not all.
No, that's not all. Because,
don't turn off yet. Because there's more to
because there's some other weird things that happen.
Okay.
Like, we think of gasoline as being a thing. But it's not. It's not the same product from place to place.
Oh, that's right. Chicago has expensive gas.
So different places have different requirements. Exactly. Different places have different requirements on what their fuel needs to do and what additives need to be in it and how it needs to behave. Right? So they have chemical requirements on it. And so some places, those chemical requirements are really quite expensive. And some places, they're less expensive. And so the more regulated your locality is, well, usually, so it could be a state, it could be state regulation.
It's a city.
But it could be, right. And
a community.
Why would a densely populated community have regulations that prevent evaporatives from getting out into the air a lot?
Because people are breathing them?
Yeah. So there's going to be different regulations if you're out in the middle of nowhere like we live, versus if you're in the middle of a densely populated area. So
right.
So
there's
that
more room to dissipate here.
And more room for it to dissipate into the air and that kind of stuff. And so there's less issues associated with it, and it attributes less. So sometimes you find out that the cost in the summertime of keeping evaporatives less volatile is expensive. Gasoline's an evaporative. You want it less volatile. It's warmer in the summer, so
it's gonna more evaporate.
Yeah.
More will evaporate. So also another thing between communities and states, it has to do with also the gas taxes.
Oh yes.
Besides
that, right? So and a lot of states. So we think of a gas tax as being so much per gallon. But a lot of states have a sales tax on their gas. You don't see it. It's just reported, right? But it's a sales tax.
Okay.
And a sales tax, as opposed to a price per gallon, is a price per dollar sold.
Right.
Right? So every dollar has a certain amount. So if the pump price of the wholesale price of gasoline goes up, then the sales tax gets bigger.
Yep.
Because it's a per dollar price. And so you end up with all of these kinds of weird things happening with the prices of gas. Most of which the politicians will keep secret, right? I'm not going to tell you that I'm...
So they're the only bad ones. It's not the business, it's the politicians.
I would say the politicians were bad, but I don't think they know.
They think Guam's going to tip.
They think Guam's going to tip over.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, you know, how long have we used? We have used a bit of time. Can you see what it is?
18 minutes.
18 minutes. That's about a good time, right?
I'm okay with it. 18 minutes.
So we're going to talk about, I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about next week. Next week we are going to talk about, handouts over COVID, the money that was infused into the American population, and its effect on inflation and government bonds. So there we go. That's what we're going to talk about next time.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like a lot of fun.
That fit together?
It doesn't fit with gas at all.
It doesn't fit with gas. That's why we're not going to bring it in.
Oh, good.
That's next week. So, I'm Sarah D.
I'm Dr. D.
And you say namaste.
Oh, namaste.
Make it a great day.